All right, welcome to our Job Seeker Stand-Up. Thank you everybody for joining. Today we're going to be continuing on helping you guys prepare for the interview. As I was saying earlier, that last week we spent some time on preparing for proposals for freelance jobs at BA. But this week we're going back into the traditional job hunt, and we're going to be talking about interview questions. And as I've been telling you before, we've done several of these sessions in our stand-up where we talk about the types of questions you're going to get, how best to tell stories, what kind of questions to anticipate. But there's so much, right? There's so much that the interview can entail. There's so many directions you can go depending on your industry, depending on what type of job you're going up for, depending on the interviewer. So there's so much. So we can't really exhaust it, right? So we're going to get into that in this session. If you have any questions, you can always ask me as usual, but I'll try to go through it and leave some time at the end. Okay, describe a time when you delivered a solution that didn't meet the initial expectation. What went wrong and how did you handle it? This is another good one. What are they actually asking you for here? They're asking you for how do you show accountability when something goes wrong, right? So it's being able to take accountability to say, okay, I own this. I made a mistake. How do you show that? And also, how do you do the analysis after the fact? It's great to do analysis before. That's great. But now that you've actually done it, it didn't meet the expectation. A great example of this is, for example, if you're working in agile and you spend all this time doing a requirements solicitation, discussing with your team, and everybody was on board. We all did estimations. We thought it was great. We went ahead, we built it. And then we got to our sprint demo. And as we're demoing it, the stakeholders saying, no, we don't want that. That's a problem. This is an issue. How do you deal with that? And what went wrong and how did you handle it? So I'll give you an example that happened to me just this morning. So we've been working on this. Imagine an audit feature. So an audit feature in banking is where everything that is being done by both the employee and the customer is in an audit log in the system, right? So whatever you do, you open your account, you look at your balance, you made a transfer, you whatever, all of these things are being tracked. And for the employee as well, all of the things that you approved, a new user, even admin, everything is tracked, right? So imagine there's a huge audit log that's always growing. It's humongous. And by law, we have to keep some of this for 7 years. So you can imagine how that goes. So we have this big audit log, but it has a lot of kind of cryptic information. Some of it will be like a long string of characters that represent some identifier somewhere that's been used in some payment or something. And it has some strange text that says user initiated, blah, 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 and user did this, blah, 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 user created, blah, blah. But it's not easy to read. It's like you need a translator to figure out what are they actually auditing. It's like system cryptic language. So we created a feature which is going to be more user-friendly, more front-end friendly, where we take the information that's being logged automatically by the system and we kind of parse it and make it easy to follow. So let's say you did a payment, you did a transfer, and then you paid a bill and all this stuff, but from the same account, for example, just coming up with stuff. Those will be individual events, and there'll be many of them. Because when you're paying a bill, first you got to go call the bill payment, you get that audited, then you got to go choose the amount and choose. Like there's a lot of things happening to make that payment, and that's every individual thing is being tracked. So it became hard to really follow. So when they're doing the auditing, it's like you need expert help to figure things out. You can't just put a search and find it. So we built this activity log to make it easier for auditors who want to check on the system to see what's going on, and even people who are giving support to be able to find things when customer calls and have a complaint. So we built this thing, it's beautiful. You go in, it's a beautiful screen. It has only 3 columns that says the date, the event, and the description of what it was. And we have a filter, and then we have a way that you can say, okay, this event had these subsequent events. We have child events that were as a result of you doing this thing. So you did a transfer. These are all the things that are related to that transfer. Beautiful. So this morning, I called in our R&D department because he's the one who's at the forefront of building out this feature as a product feature. So he comes in, he's demoing it, and we're all on this call. And at the end of his demo, the one person is saying, well, we like what we see. We think it's going to be great. It's going to help our auditors a lot because now they don't have to go like translate this cryptic thing. No, it's in plain English. They can understand it. But you only have 3 columns. We want to see more, right? So we want to see what are the different categories of audit. And he did have a filter for category, but it wasn't in the column. So what we missed was we're showing on the screen 3 columns, but in our filter, we have multiple things. So there's a little bit of a disconnect between what I can filter on and what I'm seeing. So if I filter on, let's say, show me all the audit events or payments, but I get the result, but I don't see a column that's called category that says only payments, and I don't know if I'm getting the right results or not. So I'm just going to be like going through, clicking on each one, trying to confirm that this is the result I'm getting. So it's a little bit of a not so good user experience. So what went wrong was we missed that requirement. We missed the requirement completely. And it's not that we did it on purpose. It's just that as a matter of building it, you had to take some things in and some things out, and we just didn't get to that. Other thing that we missed was we have a filter. So you can filter on the date when an audit event occurred, or you can filter on the category. But the team comes back to us and says, well, the main purpose of an audit is to find things, right? So they're not coming in to just look at a date. They probably have a transaction ID that they want to check if this transaction was actually successful and who did the transaction. They want to search. So the way, even though you can filter it, and that's a good way to see stuff too, but they wanted both. They wanted to search and they wanted to filter. So we missed those things. So what did we do? Did we in the call say, oh, yeah, that's what you're getting? No, what we said was, this is our first iteration of this feature. Obviously, it took a lot of effort to pull data from the audit and make sure everything's correct. There's a lot of testing going on. We will take all of these as feedback. And as a matter of fact, you will be the first client that will be using this new feature. So we welcome the feedback so that we can know what should be the next steps in iterating over this to make it better. Because as we do agile, we don't try to like build a Ferrari in the first go. We try to build like a scooter and then a bike and then a car and maybe a truck, and then we can get fancy, right? So we didn't have some of these things because we gave you kind of the minimum viable product, but we'll take those as inputs that we can use in an iteration to get to the next phase. And if you feel that this is a must-have, that you cannot go to market with it, then we can have that discussion. And so after the demo, I met with the 4 product owners to discuss, hey, we're going to have a second more in-depth demo. We're going to put this feature into a sandbox environment where they can play around with it so that we can really uncover what are all the things that we think would make this a better feature. And then I can make a list of that and give that to our R&D department. Not to say we're going to do it all at once, but no, these are the things that the client is giving us feedback for. So we delivered a solution. It solves a problem, but it didn't meet the expectation. What went wrong was that there probably wasn't enough communication with what the expectations were in the beginning. And we also didn't have enough time to build out the full set of features. We had to make this thing quick. So we did the thing that we thought was the minimum viable product. And how we're going to handle it is that we're going to take the feedback from the client, and then we're going to do proper refinement, which is where I come in as the BA to make sure we don't miss anything else. And then we're going to build those features over whatever timeline that we can commit to. I think we're a little out of time, so we might have to pick up on this in our next stand-up. But the next 2 questions, and again, we're just going, there's much more than 5, right? Obviously, I'm just going through some of them. The other ones that we'll talk about in our next session will be, how do you approach, like giving a walkthrough of how you'd approach gathering requirements for a system you're not familiar with. So you've never worked on this system before. And what this is testing, just before I close, this is testing your ability to work in ambiguity. Like, how do you handle things that you don't know? If somebody gives you goal right requirements for the system and you have no clue what the system is, you've never worked with it before, you don't know what the product is, you don't know the people, what do you do? Right? Because that's very common as a BA. All right, we're out of time. I'm so sorry. But I'll go through these in more detail in our next stack up. So don't worry, we'll talk about them.